So you're doing everything right. You got your degree, the job, maybe that apartment, decent lighting, and a plant you haven't killed yet. And still, you feel broke like everybody else. Not in the technical sense. Your paycheck clears, you eat well, you go on, an occasional trip here and there. Like, life is legit. Let's be honest. It's good. But deep down, there's this like low-grade financial buzz, right? Buzzing away in the background, causing this anxiety in your life.
The New York Times came out this morning with an article on money dysmorphia, which is the general idea that even though you are financially able to make ends meet, pay your bills, you have this impending sense of panic, or like you are not achieving enough because of what you see other people posting online who you think are earning a similar level of income to you, or might be just your same age, or someone that you think you are a peer towards.
So in a survey conducted by Credit Karma, 45% of Gen Zers are obsessed with getting rich, and then 59% of millennials feel as if they're behind financially.
Every single checkout feels like a gut check. Every splurge feels kind of like a mistake. Are they all a mistake? Maybe, maybe not. You should feel safe because, again, you have the job, you have a degree, you have everything. But you don't. And welcome to money dysmorphia. When you make enough, but you still feel broke. Simple. Now, to be honest, money dysmorphia isn't really a diagnosis. It's more a distortion. You look at your finances and you see a problem. Even when the numbers say you are okay, you're on track, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Maybe you're making 80K, 100K, 150, whatever it may be. Again, we're all in the Reddits, or maybe not, but I'm in the Reddits. But it just doesn't really feel like it's enough. It's never gonna be enough. You wonder where your money's going. You feel guilty for spending on yourself. And then you're scared in case emergencies come up. What kind of life is that, right? And the worst of all, you think it's just you. And that's the thing about, obviously not in the online space and stuff. We are very connected, but sometimes because of the idea that you have to come onto a camera and actually talk about what you're vulnerable and actually feeling, the fact that most people don't do that still leaves you disconnected. So you feel like you're the only one going through this thing. And recently I saw this conversation happening on TikTok again, because it's been happening over and over again. This is something that I've talked about a long time ago, and recently it's resurfaced on TikTok again. And I think it's more a systemic, pathological, even cultural issue, in my opinion. And that's why we are constantly seeing this conversation happen. I think it's quietly burning us out in a different way than it did before. And a lot of that could be due to social media. Of course, a lot of that is due to social media and the ease of comparison with each other, right? But there are, I would say, a couple of major forces driving this money dysmorphia. Of course, in my last video and a couple of videos, I talk about the treat yourself. That's a lifestyle creep. If you earn more and then, of course, your expenses are matching it, you fell into the lifestyle creep. Simple, very simple. Your upgraded phone, a nicer apartment, a different car, a more expensive car, whatever it may be that you want to now add because now you want this, I guess, your money to match this new lifestyle that you want to emulate. Those little extra subscriptions you think you can add on. Yeah. You don't think you're wasting money. You think you're just living, but that's where the creep is real. Another one that we don't really talk about a lot is scarcity mentality. That scarcity mindset, especially if you grew up around financial instability, right? Listen, your brain doesn't trust abundance. You could have 10K in your savings. You could have paid off everything you wanted to pay off. And you would probably still feel like the world's about to collapse. You know why? Therapy. You need to add it to that roster, to be honest, in my opinion. That is a big one that a lot of people actually deal with. You see this happening a lot, right? Because again, what happens when you feel like you just never will be able to catch up, you never will be able to keep up? Scarcity mentality, that mindset. And of course, social media, simple. Comparison trap. Whether it's social media, it used to happen in real life before social media was a thing, right? We would see movies, you would see a show, you would, go, listen, we see different people in different lifestyles. You see those things and it would cause you to want to compare yourself, clearly. And social media obviously has turned every single person into a brand now. Everybody, like I said in my other video, where I talk about every influencer is pretty much their own little channel, their own little show now. Comparing that to the QVC model that used to happen before, you're not just living your life, you're comparing it to this curated feed that the algorithm is giving to you. Of course, it's always going to whisper, oh, you're doing less than you should be. Look at them doing more. That's what any comparison is. I don't see anyone comparing themselves to something less. I guess you could, but why, right? Most people compare themselves to more, to people doing more, someone having or doing or being more. something they envision for themselves. You should have more, you should be more, you should do more. And this creates, of course, that financial dysmorphia. What you see isn't necessarily true. And that distorted perception isn't just uncomfortable, in my opinion. It's actually dangerous when we really look at it. Use overworking, that chronic guilt, like we talked about, from that scarcity mindset tied into that, right? And then, of course, undersaving. Because, again, the lifestyle creeps has come in. So you're not saving the way you should be or paying down the things that you need to be doing. You're balling out.
This idea that, like, no matter how much you work and no matter what your job is, like, yes, some people are rich, but it's also that we, like the working class, cannot access these things that were once just like a tenet, T-N-E-T, of just existing in this country and like working a full-time job. Like,
it's this life where you're always hustling. Why wouldn't you be always hustling? I mean, that's all you know. And you will never arrive where you want to go. Because what is your destination in the first place? What was the goal in the first place? The algorithm, right, determined the goal for you. And I'm not coming for you because this is a daily work to be like, why do I want this thing that's being shown to me? Why? And so if you're feeling like, oh, I'm living in survival mode on a salary that should give me peace. And of course, there are other factors to this. Again, we've talked about this. There's lots of factors to this. There's the economy and inflation and, you know, the fact that income isn't catching up with literally living expenses at this point. All of those are really huge factors. There are obviously socioeconomic, I would say, ideals, status quos that keep the things in the cycle that we constantly see coming back over and over, where we are constantly, well, I guess I would say that's actually gotten worse since the crash, the 2008 crash, right? The basic income obviously is not catching up to living wages, to livable wages, to the ability to afford a house, a place to live, and just security. So that aspect is 100% real. But at the end of the day, you know, you have people who are multimillionaires, billionaires, and they come on here, right? And they still say they weren't feeling like they were enough. They weren't feeling like, you know, what they were doing was good enough. Why? Because the piece wasn't about having more. It was about, you know, those things that you set as your goals and metric. And again, it's obviously nice to have money. I'm not lying to you, but it can't be everything. It's part of it. It's a big part of it. It makes everything easier. Let's be real. But it's about all the other things that you want to do that are fulfilling in your life and goals. Because at the end of the day, right, we're humans, we're animals at the core of it. There's this innate desire for us to achieve and do things. When you don't do and you don't achieve, over time, it may seem, okay, well, you know, I'm just living in, you know, the day-to-day, the mundane day-to-day. But whose mundane day-to-day are you living? Is it just like what's been set by the system? Or does it kind of have a goal for you? What is your goal? Like, okay, me, I want to live in Europe someday. That's a goal of mine. So what are the ways that I'm going to be able to do that? How can I eventually get there? Some way, somehow, right? Maybe not now, maybe when I'm 50, maybe when I'm older, but it's still a goal. So how will I do that? That's not something that's necessarily, I guess it does take money. Again, the money comes back in, right? But it's not all that it is. It's all about, okay, how do I maybe position my career, different things that I do in my life to be able to get to this place that I want to go to, right? So it's about having more. It's about seeing things a little bit more clear. It's about having goals that are just like, okay, I made the money, but what else does it give you? What are you becoming with it? So you have to really start untangling that mindset from all the noise, the social media noise, the constant pictures, photos, things, people talking, the yapping. And the thing is, working to rewire, really, you have to rewire that relationship with money. It is, again, a relationship for a reason, meaning that you will grow or maybe decay, but it depends. But it's either you're putting the effort that you need to be putting in or you're not. When I say, okay, listen, you know, you have to kind of do the work to see what, you know, anything, terms that are thrown around all the time in finance. Because again, I'm not a finance bro. I don't want to be a finance bro. I studied it and it was very boring for me. I don't want to be a finance bro. I'm not going to be like on Wall Street. I don't foresee that being for me, nor do I think I'm going to be like a super techie person. Again, all cool things, but just not for me. So I'm obviously going to have to do that work. I'm obviously going to have to read about a 401k and or IRA and what it means to max it out and what is the maximum I can do in a year. Like, you're going to have to like go to someone, talk to someone, learn those things. Rewiring your relationship with money is a relationship for a reason, right? It's not just spreadsheets alone. It's having that clarity, the language, and even the mental model that you need to sustain a long-term relationship with, having a good base with money, with financial stability. So, learning all those like money distortions, those things that you constantly do because maybe that's how you were raised and how it's always been around you, and you get more, you do more, and that's the way you've always known it to be. Learning those type of things, learning that how somebody else is spending, just because they're spending it doesn't mean they're not going into debt. It doesn't mean that everything they're showing us is as it is. They could rent it and return it. It could be, again, we've seen the dupe epidemic and the rep epidemic being a big thing. Hello, China, social media. I'm not sure if you're online right now, but it could be any of those things. And you took it at face value. That is a distortion. Like I said, building the definition of what enough or what actually life is outside of the money. Like, what is it getting me outside? Like, I get to say money cannot be the end all be all. It is a means to an end of ideally, hopefully living a good life, not a life centered around the money, because that is not a deep, fulfilling life. That's very shallow, very vapid. And also designing a system that feels, or at least makes money feel safe. Not like, I feel like a lot of times, I'm an immigrant. That's just what it is. Especially not an immigrant from an immigrant like, we have great financial background. No. It's learning like all of the things that may be ideals and mentions of money growing up that you don't even realize if locked in, right? It's just a thing. I feel like, it is hard to, in this society and in our times, to be able to get to even appreciate the value of the money, right? Like we talked about the 100,000, 150, not being able, there was a whole article on CNBC. I shouldn't say an article. There was a video on CNBC that came out 2 days ago, how, people in New York are making $300,000, $400,000 and they're still living in apartments. They still cannot afford to buy a house because private equity has come in and bought up a lot of the houses at affordable prices and then increased the prices like crazy. And which is all around the United States. This is not a New York thing. This is definitely everywhere thing. The idea that 300,000, 400,000 is not going to get you to where you're going to go to. You have to eventually redefine. You're going to have to redefine what that means to you. Like what actual success and happiness means to you. If it's not even going to be enough to buy the things that you thought it would buy you in the first place, the things that you went to school and education and all this stuff for, right? Yes, maybe you want double. You may not need it. Some people need it, but you may not need it, right? But you really need to just stop living like you're constantly drowning. I think that's one of my biggest things too, like working through it. You're not drowning, you're swimming, you're doing great. You're doing great. Aren't you? And if you're not, you get to a place where you do great because everything is a path. Hello, you know my story. All right. I was working making a net of like $12.50 an hour with a master's degree. Okay. You will get there, right? It is reframing your mind, or at least trying to see the positive. That's really what it is. Because at the end of the day, if you're making the steps and doing the things, you will eventually get there. Like, it could take a long time, but you'll get there. So it's really reframing your mind around money. That was the biggest thing. That's my biggest thing. That's still something, again, relationship. It's a relationship, so you have to work on it. Why do you see things the way you see when it comes to money? The way that you see it, that causes you to constantly live or feel like you are in fear of never catching up. To who, right? Because if everybody's mostly complaining, this amount of money is still not getting me a house, it's still not getting me things, then it's not only you that's feeling that way. It is affecting a lot of people in multiple ways. So for the most part, of course, we have the exceptions. But most people. And I would say, honestly, that's kind of what my social media is about. Like, or at least that's what my channel is about. That's what my YouTube is about. That's why we have these conversations all the time, right? It's like working through that relationship and learning things. And then the things that I learn, I'm like, hey, guys, have you thought about this? It's for people like you. People, okay, you're making decent money, but you still feel stuck. Yeah, I've been there. I'm still working through it. It's a relationship. And that's why I built this simple spending tracker to help you see where your money is going and why it feels like it disappeared. It's like a fun little check every day just to see, hey, did I spend money today? What were my triggers? How am I feeling in that moment? What was it that made me even want to buy or not buy? That's the point. Because really, money dysmorphia, just like body dysmorphia, right? Isn't just a budgeting problem. Isn't just a one situation problem. It's a belief problem. How you really see things, how you really see yourself. And belief can be changed. It can evolve over time. It can adapt. So you're not broken. You're not bad with money. All right. We are in a certain system that definitely makes it that way for us. We're not taught the money education that we're supposed to when we're in school. No one really knows. Like when we're doing our taxes, we're trusting these tax programs to help us do it right. We're all learning as we're going now. Of course, some people are the tech pros and the finance pros. Congrats. But I will dare to even venture, not everyone knows every single thing in all fields of finance and money and everything. They may be a specialist in what they do, but they don't know every single thing and everything. They just know a little bit more than you. And you can learn too if you learn more. And if you're just carrying beliefs that really don't belong with you anymore, you need to drop them. It's time to drop them. That's what this video is for. Drop them. I'm here to tell you, babes, it's time to drop. You can finally feel rich, feel fulfilled, feel accomplished in your life because you're doing well, you're doing great, sweetheart. Don't forget to download the habit tracker and check in on those dysmorphic feelings when they really pop up for you. And until next time, bye.